Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Unbreakable Life with Glory, the podcast where we talk about depression, anxiety, PTSD in a holistic way and natural way to always make you feel better. So, how are you, everybody? My name is Gloria Goldberg. For the people that is the first time connecting with me, I create this podcast because I suffer from in the past from depression and anxiety, and I find the way to overcome a lot of my traumas, and I still overcoming a lot of my traumas. And everything is related from a trauma that I had when I was 25 years old, that I was kidnapped and held in captivity for 90 days. So that's why I create this podcast, because I did transform that trauma in something very beautiful to help other people that goes to trauma for them to feel better. I know that depression and anxiety comes and goes, and it comes and goes for me sometimes, but I also understand why, and also it's a long process. So that's why I create this beautiful podcast for you to feel better and to bring you many, many tools and many, many people around the world to tell you about how they think about depression, how they think about anxiety, and how they overcome it, how they do it, how the way they see depression, the way they see the anxiety, and to give you a voice or an advice or a light for you to make me see the light. Because when you are in depression and anxiety, when you have depression, you are in the deepest sadness, and you are in a very, very dark place. But that dark place is beautiful, because that is the moment for you to be able to go more deep in you and to find the key that I always say the master key to turn around your light and shine forever, and for you to get out from that darkness, and for you able to shine and tell your story how you came out from that light. So today we're going to talk about liquid light. And to be honest with you, I don't know what it's about. And I always like when I come to this show knowing nothing, because it's gonna be more easy for me to ask questions that probably a lot of people want to ask. And when you don't know too much about it, you find a lot of surprises, because you ask the right questions for a lot of people that are listening to the podcast. So today I have a very, very special guest. It took me almost a month and a half to tell him to come to my podcast. He was doing he was in a mission. I think he's in Europe still. We're gonna ask him where he is right now, and he was working in something very profound. And he said to me, Gloria, I promise to you, when I finish my what I'm doing right now, I will come to your show and share with you. So who is the guest that I'm bringing today? His name is Frank Joseph. I would say Ford. I don't know if I say in the right way. We're gonna ask him. He's a visionary, metaphysician, artist, and a writer. So let's give him a welcome to Unbreakable Life with Glory, the podcast, to Frank Joseph.
Hi,
Hello.
Gloria.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, it's an honor. I'm so happy to have you, because I love the things that you do, the work, the dedication for you to help a lot of people to feel better. But before we go into that subject that we love, who is Frank Joseph Ford? Did I say the right way? Frank
Yes, I'm
Joseph Ford?
Frank Joseph the fourth. Yes, I'm
Okay,
the fourth of Frank Josephs in my family. Yeah,
that's awesome.
and it's been a journey to claim my birth name. Oftentimes we have nicknames or we change our names, and it is for me at least has been an emotional journey to claim my actual name and choose what my name means to me, as our name is a spell. It is a spell
Yes.
that enchants us and makes us feel a certain way. Now, if our parents used our name in vain, then we might have a negative connotation when we hear our name in a certain way. So we feel something when we hear our name. We might like it, we might not like it. Most people don't really inquire about it, but it's very important because first there was the word, and there's a reason for that. And so to know what your name means to you, I I I have come to realize that is a very empowering and powerful understanding.
Wow, you make me remember when I was doing another kind of business before in my what I do for a long time here in the United States. I used the second name, my second name,
Mm,
because I didn't like my first name for some reason. And then 2 years ago, I said, no, I love Gloria. I love Gloria. It was like, why am I using Gloria? So now I'm using Gloria, but I'm not using Patricia, porque Patricia is remember me a lot of things that I went through, that hardships that I went through. But Patricia is my antagonist, the one that pushed me through, and Gloria is the more calm. So when I need to put my potential out to do stuff that take me out of my comfort zone, I call Patricia. But when I need to come and respond in the right way, let's see, or be more conscious, is Gloria. So you got me a point there that
hmm.
we in
Yeah,
some time, like in my case, I have the two names, but I use it in different times.
that's right. And our names are important. And we can have multiple names. We can have spiritual names. We have names in certain contexts with certain groups, and they're part of us. So to be mindful and conscious about our name first and foremost, I feel is a really powerful understanding. A very powerful tip for our life to feel more empowered is to know what our name means to us and know how to call on those energies when we need them. Like you have these two parts of you. We have many parts of us. And it's great to name them because if you name them, then you can consciously choose to use them and then consciously choose to relax or subside them when they need to be subsided and bring out another part. And I think that's wise. I think that's super wise. And this whole path of personal development and spirituality is inquiring and getting to know ourselves and coming up with models of understanding and methods so that we can navigate our inner world and this outer world in the most aligned way with our soul. And so, anyway, I'm very excited to be here. And wherever you want to start, I'm ready
I'm so
for it.
excited too. Okay, you know that my audience, I go through the people who suffer from depression and anxiety
Mm,
and PTSD. What do you understand about depression and what you understand about anxiety?
wow. So I grew up with my father leaving when I was a baby, and he got injured and then eventually went down a path of drug abuse. My mom had to work 3 jobs, take care of 3 kids. It was a very stressful upbringing. And because of the trauma between my mother and father, and I being the only boy growing up with 2 sisters and my mom with the same name as my father, I began to play this trauma out with of man with my mother. So that was the beginning stage of me having this anger and this resentment towards the opposite sex. And it's very important to acknowledge this because most women, it's with the man or the father, and most men, it's with the mother or the woman. Um, and there are a smaller percentage where we still have to process trauma with the same sex as well. That's also very valid. But the core trauma is usually with the opposite sex, as I've learned throughout my career, and I'll share with you how I've come to these discoveries. But I grew up with an edge, with like an anger at the world and an apathy. That's how my depression manifested. I felt apathetic because I actually was a very joyous exuberant, charismatic kid. However, my mom, in attempts to being the father, would suppress me or put me down or yell at me or abuse me physically and emotionally, to try to tame my energy. And I grew up, I guess, by being shut up all of the time with a speech impairment. And even though I was a popular kid, I still had a lot of insecurities. And deep down, I was apathetic, which what you can call depressed. That's repressed expression, repressed joy. When it goes to such a level of depression, when you feel apathy, where I didn't care, I just didn't care. And then if I cared, then I was angry. So I went from apathy to anger. And fast forward, after high school, I got a job at a nursing home, and I began to witness all types of diverse human beings on their deathbed. And I was able to sit in the rooms of these patients and talk to them and listen to their stories. At the same time, at the end of that high school, I was 18. A lot of my friends went to college. I stayed home and I got this job. And I was having panic attacks and anxiety. That summer I began to feel anxiety. I began to have insomnia and anxious symptoms. And so I was now having anxiety as an 18-year-old, having panic attacks several a day. And my family was very separate and non emotionally safe. It was not emotionally safe at all. And then I was witnessing people on their deathbed. And so what happened was, with such an intensity of a situation, being depressed and all of the feelings that come around being super depressed and apathetic, which is feeling empty, there's no meaning to life, why live, to having panic attacks and creating all types of phobias. I know this area that you're speaking very well. Uh, an interesting thing happened to me. As I began to witness people on their deathbed, I would hear the regrets that they would have. And I would hear what they should have, would have, could have done. And then, because I was hyper analyzing everything, I began to see how everybody was overstressed and not happy. And here I was, as a lost 18-year-old kid with no family support and no real hope for my future. And something interesting happened where I realized that I needed to take responsibility or nothing was going to change. So I faced a feeling of death. And I began to separate from the thoughts in my mind. And I imagine any anxious person could relate to this, where it's like, I actually don't believe what I'm thinking. So who am I? And then who's the thoughts? So I began to make these interesting spiritual discoveries, and like, I don't believe these thoughts. Okay, so if then who's the I? And then who's the one thinking the thoughts? So I began to have these distinctions. And even though that made me more anxious in the moment, it separated to make me realize that now what I would call my nervous system was flaring up, and it was overstimulated, and hence the response of anxiety and depression and confusion. So what happened was, I went to traditional psychological approaches, psychiatry, psychology. I went to other alternatives like acupuncture, acupressure, because I hurt my body at the same time. So I started doing all the approaches. I went to church. I started to go for a healing journey. And usually, especially in America, you have like the traditional psychotherapy, and then you have the religion. But out of that box at that time, wasn't podcasting spiritual. I didn't know anything about the world that you and I are currently living in, and no information. And so as I began to go all in into trying to heal, I realized I was just getting more sick, as they were giving me prescription medicine and they were labeling me as manic depressive, and I felt more and more disempowered. And then in the religion, I felt this willingness, this openness. I gave my heart to God. I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I gave my heart to a higher power, which was the most profound part of that part of the journey. But then even the religion, I found a lot of incongruencies that only made me more anxious and more disempowered. So what happened to me was, there was little angels, little things that came into my life, and strangers that were kind to me, and they gave me hope, and they began to make me feel like I had purpose. And once I felt this inside of my heart, I began a rigorous intent that I was going to heal and that I was going to pay it forward. And usually you need a strong enough why when you're really depressed and really anxious and really lost in life to get you through. And mine was, I was so impacted by the kindness of other people that didn't know me. Uh, Relatively wise, they were strangers, they were or colleagues, and they were so kind to me, and they believed in me even when I was supposedly the bad kid that would not amount to anything. That gave me enough purpose to then go on an intentful journey, and I began to seek information and begin to heal myself. And the first approaches that I began to uncover was again the distinction that I am not my mind. And I want everyone to hear this. You are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Why this is empowering is because then you can actually, with your awareness, change what you think, and you can experiment. Obviously, in the beginning, your mind's going to be conditioned to be hyperactive if you have anxiety, or to be or to go right to the negative trigger that gives your body that heaviness, that's depression, because it's a conditioning in your nervous system. But I got that message, that light in that darkness, that's saying I am not my thought, and that I can reprogram my nervous system. That actually what's happening to me is a program of trauma that is so overwhelming that I forgot about it, and it has been compartmentalized, and it's getting triggered throughout the day, making me feel this way. But it has nothing to do with the soul, the awareness, the innocence that I am. So then the next question was, where are the tools to reprogram my nervous system?
Right.
And then that journey opened up, and I began to learn neurolinguistic programming, different forms of psychological approaches, like cognitive therapy. But then I began to search how to heal with food. And I began to get a holistic journey that you really need. You need to go on a holistic journey. You need to do things in combination. Like if you're a professional fighter, you need to throw punches and bunches. You need to address it physiologically, emotionally, environmentally. You need to start making changes. And the way you'll make the change is through that purpose. And like I said, it was for me, is because I wanted to serve. I wanted to heal, and I wanted to give back, because the kindness that I experienced from others, that really touched my heart when I needed it. And so that's the short story that led me to this path. And I began to make really amazing results, and then begin to fulfill that prophecy and start to speak to kids all around the world. And then deeper and deeper and deeper my path went. And I would say, to speak to the title, Liquid Light,
Yes.
is what happens when you begin to lighten your trauma. Your space, the way you feel in your body, your mind becomes lighter. It's actually light. And so liquid light is when it's so palpable, this lightness, that you feel bliss and you feel like you are in this ocean of light. And I can congruently say that I have come that far from that dense, anxious, ignorant child, ignorant meaning not knowing, to a place where I can say I'm living in liquid light majority of the time. Not always, but I have experienced, and I experience continuously, a joy, a bliss, which is a miracle.
So how long you been in this path, in this journey to find out your master key?
Well, it started, that was at 18 years old. I'm 32 now. It didn't take me all the way up until now, but I have been different stages along the journey. So it's been a while now. That's why I'm able to teach at this level, because I know it inside and out.
So for the people that they are depressed or have anxiety, what, because some people are lost and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to start to feel better. How will you guide them to do it?
Yes. At that place, the challenge is that the routine that is monotonous mostly. If it's in a it's either you're in a monotonous routine or you're in such an uncertain uh, experience.
Can you explain the difference for people that don't
Yeah. So
understand?
monotonous means like it's so consistent, whereas there's no spontaneity. It's like you wake up, you hear the same thing from your mother, your father, your spouse. You go to work at the same time, you eat the same thing, you go home. This is is a box. These are boxes. This is a structure that then might be working against you if you're feeling anxious and depressed. Um, and what I'll talk to you and to your audience about now, my definition of depression, and actually a very simple way to begin to heal it and begin to transform it. Um, the uncertain environment is like, it's so much change and there's so much instability that you're feeling anxious and you don't feel safe. The whole point of anxiety and depression is an emotional unsafety. Majority of us feel that way because of the stress from our society. So we all have the odds against us. Now, this is not meant to be disempowering, a disempowering fact. It's supposed to be like, okay, well, if this is what it is, then it's not personal. When you start taking things personally, then you internalize them and you begin to make it your identity as in a depressed or an anxious person. And therefore, then you have a double whammy, because not only do you have anxiety and depression, but then you believe you are anxiety and depression. And that can't be further than the truth. It's just been so much, so overwhelming that you've come to believe that. But isn't it interesting that you can begin to feel differently by the things we'll talk about later, and you can begin to believe something else about yourself as well that will be way more empowering. Oftentimes, this emotional unsafety, if we feel anxious and depressed and we get rewarded with attention, then again locks in another hook saying, if I'm anxious and depressed, then at least people pay attention to me. And so this is what we do, is like, it's that same thing, is that we keep giving our power more and more away
It's like a
to,
circle. It's a circle.
yeah. And we can only do that for so long, because then it really hurts the soul, really hurts the soul to be victimized in this way. It will destroy the body and the mind and the soul to do that. I know it takes a lot of courage in the face of the unknown to not be rewarded for your victimhood and to start to rewire that. It's a whole threshold that you have to get through. But once you do get through, the self-respect that you'll have for yourself, no, you can't buy it. That's something that is earned, that you will have imprinted in your soul and you'll be super proud about. And so to answer your question, the way that we need to address this is fast forward to what I know now, is that any anxiety and depression is a form of, it's a signal that the body is giving us to listen. And we are conditioned not to listen, therefore the signal gets louder. The signal could be anxiety, which is a form of expressing fear, or depression, which is a suppressed, repressed emotion. And the more you're suppressing and not expressing or feeling your emotion, the more depressed you're going to get. Because it's a form of disempowerment just before apathy, because it's repressing emotion. That's what it is. A lot of very passionate, emotional, loving beings that are doing their best to fit into this monotonous cookie cutter structure society, to think that that would be successful in the eyes of their parents or something. The reason why they're depressed is because they're not really authentically expressing how they feel. And their emotions, the truth of their nature, needs to be felt. That's why it's depressing. Emotion is what gives color to life. Depression is colorless. So the mistrust of your expression of your emotion is because what happens, you express your emotion, maybe you got drunk or something, and then it turned out horrible, so then you suppressed it, and a lot of people are just like this. The key is to know that it's in your emotional state, and emotions are connected to the water element, and it's meant to flow. So what we could do now to address depression is to listen to the signal of the body, which we can go through an exercise later. But basically know that, okay, depression for me is I'm suppressing and I'm conditioned. I'm habitually suppressing and repressing the way I actually feel. For whatever the reason is, for whatever the belief is, for whatever the reason why. Okay. The fact is that the more you're suppressing it, the more stagnant the energy that's meant to flow is going to build up in your body, and it's going to make you feel down until you drink, you let go, someone triggers you, and then you unleash it and you wind up hurting yourself or hurting someone else. Okay. That's a cycle. The solution to that is to know it's a signal and make a devotion to begin to practice listening to it. And you can learn these tools. I'll share some of them here, and then you can find them, especially in today's day with the internet. You can find these tools, and it'll be extravagant, because then you begin to allow yourself to express your emotions, and inevitably will change your life in a good way. But you need to realize, is it more scary, or make a decision? Is it more frightening and fearful to stay in your depression for the rest of your life? This is what I thought of when I was 18. This is what made the change for me. Or to attempt to go beyond the depression and find higher ground. And I realized out of the two, because I could see how at 18 I could have stayed in that mentality, and I could have been miserable, just like my parents and like my colleagues that were 20 years my senior at that time. Or it's like, and to look for the solution, even though it was the unknown route, and go to higher ground, there's actually the more logical decision. So anxiety, again, is a signal as well. But anxiety is a fear. So what happens with anxiety is that we are creating a scenario that is bringing a sense of fear and worry. Now, if it's anxiety, that means that it is irrational. That means we're creating the whole thing in our mind. We're creating a scenario about the past or what if or future. So it's everywhere else but here. What ends anxiety instantly is here,
Yes.
is here and now. So how do you get into the here and now? Again, it's the body. Because it's the body, and it's specifically what I'm pointing to, the heart here, even though the feelings are uncomfortable in the body, and anxiety usually is pent up energy, it could be pent up energy, and it can go to the mind, and then the mind goes to its fears, and then it races, and then you need to distract yourself somehow to balance yourself or regulate in an unconscious way. And it's just a hope to regulate. But then the regulation, if you drink or you do something harmful to your body, then it creates more pain against yourself, which creates more of the cycle of the anxiety. But I want us to all know it's innocent. You're just trying to regulate. When you go unconscious and you eat or whatever, you're just trying to calm down. That's really what you're
Right.
trying to do. So we need to realize that the nervous system is overstimulated. It's responding in a certain way to a subconscious trigger. And that if you can address it as if you were addressing a child, like a baby, like you're taking care of this body. It doesn't just automatically do it. Your consciousness is the driver. Most of us are not the consciousness or the awareness takes the back seat. So then this traumatized, overstimulated vessel just takes us for a ride every day. And the way to get in touch with your awareness is actually to go towards the dragon. The dragon is the anxious body, is the uncomfortable pain in the heart or the belly. And it's actually to bring your attention right there. It's the most amazing alchemical thing that happens. Alchemical means like it transmutes instantly. When you bring your awareness to the body, your focus there, your hand there, you bring warmth to the wherever the pain and the anxiety is, and you begin to stay there and listen. I am listening. Right? This is a tool I'm giving now. I am listening. Just this mantra, this statement, this affirmation. I am listening.
I am listening.
I am listening to you now.
I am listening to you now.
The energy will begin to calm down. And the sensation will begin to fluctuate and move. It will change. Most of the anxiety and depression actually just is an inner part of you that needs to be acknowledged. You might be doing something that in your consciousness isn't, or your conscience isn't right. Or there might be something else for you, but you're so rigidly trying to force your life into something. It's all signals that's actually trying to help you. The resistance is exactly that. Resistance to what these signals are trying to tell you. It's not as scary. It becomes a monster when you neglect and you look away from it. A lot of people that are experiencing anxiety, if they're a bit more spiritually oriented, they call this demons and entities and psychic attack. And that has its whole category. At the same time, the same principles apply. The more you neglect it, the bigger it becomes. The stronger it builds a monster. And we have to be courageous as human beings. We can't be passive. And isn't it interesting that our whole society is built around us being passive?
Yes.
And if you want to reclaim your life, you have to minimize your passiveness and maximize your attention. Take charge of your attention and when you feel anxious or depressed, it's a signal in the body. You bring your hand right to the signal, you bring your focus there, and you begin to talk to it. I am listening. And if you can get to the message of what it's actually telling you, you'll be amazed. You can have an instant healing. Right? Boom. Wow. Actually, I really need some rest and I'm tired.
Yes.
The nervous system responds to honesty. And that's contradicting to our performance-based society, but hey, listen, it's not working, our performance-based society. I know we got to keep food on the table, but we need to be a bit more intelligent, because our emotional instability is causing pain to the people that we love the most, and it's making us be unhappy about the lives we're living. So okay, we can go along and do our work, but we got to take care of ourselves for the ones that we love, and for our life, for the purpose to live. And all we have to do is just be a little bit more honest with the way that we feel, and not neglect how we feel, but to listen to how we feel. And that is like a fundamental principle that can begin to shift somebody's anxiety, no matter where they are, whether they're really anxious or really depressed, or they're just like having a moment. This will help them. This principle will help them. Address it directly. Use your body. Your body is producing 5,000 times more energy or electrical output than the brain. Stop trying to address things with thoughts. Like Albert Einstein once said, which is brilliant, you can't change a problem in the same place that it's created from. The thoughts are responding to an electrical charge in your body. The body is the nervous system. The body, the subconscious mind, is your entire nervous system. It manifests as a coping mechanism as thoughts. So, for example, if we have an uncomfortable sensation or we're overwhelmed in the body, we can start drifting in our mind. This is a coping mechanism. But again, you're not those thoughts. If you can detach a little bit your awareness, you can begin to generate a thought.
Right.
Or you can begin to blow love towards the thought. Or you begin to take your attention from the thoughts and bring it back to the body and say, I'm listening, and go into a curious state of mind in how your body feels. And notice how the sensations of your body are changing in real time just by listening to the body.
And they were aligned also over time, because if you get used to onto when you have that, then your body understand that the mind doesn't have the control, that you have the control when those things come up.
That's right. Exactly. This is so important. This is huge. You have the control. Who is the you? Who is the I? In simple terms, it is the observer. Okay? So if you're really immersed in your thoughts, or if you're in a trauma response, you start to go into an episode where you become this pattern of thought and emotion. You can come back out of that and you can say, I don't know what got into me, right? Right, exactly. So what you're going to do from here forward is begin to train this when you're not flared up, when you're not triggered. This is when
Correct.
you train in the early morning, right before you go to sleep, when you feel relaxed. This is when you start doing the work, whether you like it or not. And I wish it was easier for us all, but we have been given a vessel, a space suit called a human nervous system, and a body and a brain. Our awareness has become immersed in it and actually believed we are the body and the brain. It's not true. We are an awareness that is observing this whole thing behind the scenes, and this awareness can signal the body and the brain and to react in a different way and to feel different things. So we need to get in touch with that awareness, and that's the path. And as you do that, then you can begin to reprogram your subconscious mind. But it also starts with listening. It's not forcing, it's actually listening. Because if you listen, the body, if you are honest with how you feel, the body will relax. It's about emotional safety. If your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your family, or if your environment's not making you emotionally safe, then you need to create an environment inside your own vessel to be emotionally safe. And like we talked about earlier, sometimes it's not ready to address your family member or a certain abuser. You're not ready for it yet. You need to do a little bit more healing, right? Because also, when you
Yes.
heal within yourself, because you're psychically bonded, we call this a constellation. When you have a constellation, a bond with that person energetically, you are already clearing and healing it anyway. And sometimes other people won't go on that journey with you. And you may never ever have that closing conversation in this life. But as long as you can become the guardian of your own nervous system and begin to have deep compassion and deep kindness and love and begin to move as much energy into redefine what this all means, then you're giving yourself your power back, and that's most important. And then any little progress in a closing experience with another will be significant, because it will be meaningful because of your attention to it, because of your awareness to it, because of your willingness to it. You will create that transformation. Yeah.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because a lot of people think that the way they overcome the traumas that somebody create to them is just the forgiveness. But I think you have to start with the forgiveness first with yourself, and understand how much damage you've been doing to your body about that situation. And then when you recover that, then probably you'll be able to forgive that person, and that person can forgive you. But like you said, sometimes it's not possible, and you have to also understand and let it be.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you let it be? Well, you let it be because you actually trust yourself, that you can hold yourself emotionally safe in the letting go process. But that takes some inner inquiry and work. And it's all about emotional safety. And we can facilitate that for ourselves. And in fact, it's really important. It's really important.
And I understand that when you forgive yourself and you forgive others, there's also a big, huge transformation that happens there, because you feel that you empty your bag, and you will have more space to be different, and to feel, oh my God, I had this situation with this person for a long time. Now, when I see that person or hear about that person, I don't feel the anger towards that. So that means you liberate that, and you become more aware with you and more gentle with you, and a lot of the issues, emotional issues, is also disappear with that forgiveness that you did for yourself and the other person.
Yes, that's what it's huge.
It's
This is
huge.
another decision that we have to make. Like, we're all children. And what I mean by that is that when we were born into this life, we saw our guardians, our mother and our father, and they were literally God to us. And we realized later on that they were actually traumatized humans.
Right.
And they were our mirror, and all their unprocessed emotional trauma was projected onto us, and that was very harsh. And then we began to play the constellation, the family constellation, family entanglement, family karma, so to speak, or trauma.
Yes. Yes.
So it is through our experience and our wisdom and our decision to really look at what do we genuinely really long for, or we long to just express our unique light and feel safe to do that. Because it was the mom and the dad also represent the great father or God, and the great mother or goddess or the earth. And it is this separation and this trauma between those two. But in our soul, we just want to feel safe as the divine child of God, to express our beauty and to be celebrated and held in that. But the interesting paradox, this is why the ancient teachings always talk about this paradox, the light and the dark, and then in the middle ground. The ancient paradox is that if we want something without, we must first do it within. And I would like to speak genuinely from my soul. I'm a journey, and I know your journey has been long and deep. And it is possible. And it is an amazing journey. And it's a quest. It's a mission. It's a self-discovery. When you go to discover who you are and you begin to release yourself from your pains, your grievances, your grudges, and all these things that are weighing you down and making you suffer emotionally, if you were to be honest, and you find the light of your soul and you get to express that in this life, it's one of the greatest experiences. And that's the liquid light, is when it's the light of your soul shining and saying, you know, I love myself enough that I'm protecting myself by choosing who I'm around, where I am geographically, you know, what I'm doing, because I actually care and I understand myself. And all I want to do is experience the light of my soul shining here. And trust me, when you do that, you will find those that love you for you. You will find the environment that supports you. Your dreams will be realized. But you have to do it within. And that's the quest of each human soul.
Wow, that is beautiful. So, Frank, can you explain to us about your master classes about the liquid light? I know it's about the liquid light, but can you go more deeper into explain what exactly you do and happen in those sessions of the master class?
Yes, yes, thank you so much. Well, spontaneously, they are spontaneous, but I do them quite consistently, maybe once or twice a month. On my Instagram, you'll see notifications for them, and later on, I'm working on a platform where I can invite a group of meditators to practice the material I've been working on. But essentially, they are activations of your nervous system. So they're the healings and activations. Why the word activation is because oftentimes through the emotional impact of our daily life, our potential of our power gets suppressed, repressed, compartmentalized. And so what happens is in these sessions, we begin to awaken your power in your energy centers. In ancient India, they would call it the chakras, but we would open the heart. We would work viscerally with the heart, with sound, with breath, and with specific meditations. And I call it metaphysics because it's actually um, there are actually certain things you do with your mind that creates an effect in your body, which allows stuck energy to move from your heart and to bring love into your heart. And that love will regenerate your body and begin to heal your body. And so we go through series of activations. We can work with oxygenating the brain, aligning and balancing the brain. This will help with those that have an overactive brain or mind or thoughts, such as anxiety. We work on healing the heart. We work on awakening your power centers in your solar plexus, your creativity in your belly, etc., etc. So we're working more on the energetic level, but anybody can do this. And this is actually the progression of the trauma work, where you can begin to heal and awaken and feel things that you may have never felt before that are really nourishing and empowering for your life. And it's really about reclaiming our power.
Wow, this is awesome. I've been in one of those activation, and then you feel amazing after it, and a lot of things happen after it. But you have to experiment that and go to one of those sessions with him. And they are fantastic. I almost went to the second one, but something happened. I couldn't go. But yes, I always have the opportunity. I always wanted to go to your master
Thank you.
classes. They're
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
So before we go, can you give us a message for the people that today they are thinking to take their lives away?
Wow. Well, I just want to say I understand you, and I felt this too, you know. And I also know that you have felt the joy of life and like your desire to live and the meanings of why you want to live and who you love and who what it means to those that love you that you're here. And the truth is, if I can speak life into you, to give me permission in this moment to give you words of wisdom from a brother on the path, is that you don't want to end your life. You want to end the depressed, anxious, miserable life or part of your life or season of your life or moment of your life. That's what you want to end. And guess what? That exists in your mind. Because isn't it true that if you felt different and if you were in a different context, you would feel something completely different? So I want you to give yourself this opportunity to go through this dark night of the soul and become better for it. And trust me, it will change. Inevitably, even if you don't do anything, you just eat a bunch of food and watch YouTube videos, it's going to change anyway. But better yet, if you can take this intensity and this like wanting to die and choose the death of your own ego that's in your way, that cares about what other people think about you, or all these things, material things that come and go, whatever it is. And you can then say, I choose to live from my soul and I had enough, no more. Then you will realize a path of the dream of life, and you deserve that. And guess what? Anybody that really has experienced a dream of life probably has felt the way you have felt, because you're a special soul, you're a sensitive soul, you have purpose in your soul. So go through this, die to those old parts of yourself, but keep your body alive, because the best is yet to come.
Wow, that is beautiful. Thank you so much. We also want to thank you, Jorge, to be here today. Thank you to send us those kisses. We accept those kisses and send you more. So, Joseph, Frank, Joseph, thank you so much to be in Unbreakable Life with Glory, the podcast. It's an honor to have you here. I'm so happy that you was able to come here and share your knowledge, because you are 32 years old, but you are like 100 years of knowledge, and I love that about you.
See, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna put you
Thank
in
you,
the green
Gloria.
room. You're welcome. I'm gonna put you in the green room. I'm gonna wrap it up, and if you can wait for me
Okay,
until I close the show, it would be perfect. If you have to go, you're more than welcome to go, and we catch up
I'll
in
be here.
another moment. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Wow, this was amazing. George, thank you so much for those kisses. He sent more kisses. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, you know, you already hear Frank about his journey, how many things he already conquered in life, and he keep going and helping others. And I love the part when he said that he was so desperate to get out of the emotions that he had in that moment, that he said that he wants to find the way to heal in order for him to return back to humanity. So I love that, because when you are in those dark moments of your life, that for me those dark moments are very, very precious, is when you are more vulnerable, and is when you really find yourself, and when you able to jump from there and shine out there and help others to get out from that darkness, is so freaking beautiful. It's like the recompense of for you of your journey, to see other people to shine, to see other people to get better. And that is exactly what we are here to help you to feel better. So thank you so much for to be in Unbreakable Life with Glory, the podcast where we talk about depression, anxiety, and PTSD, holistic way and natural way to always make you feel better. And remember what Frank teach us today: to put your hand in your stomach or in your heart and say, "I listen to you. I'm listening to you." And that way we get the chance to see the light, because we are listening to ourselves. Thank you so much to be here. remember to share, to like, and to subscribe in order for me to continue working and bring people, gorgeous people for the show. And also remember that this mission is very important to open our conscious towards the depression and anxiety, and also to the families that they have people with these issues, to be able to help and to have compassion and love, and to understand that we are emotional, and some people are more emotional than the other ones, and it's beautiful too. So thank you so much, and see you next Wednesday. And one thing I want to say, I love you all. Bye bye. Yeah, and this is Gloria Goldberg.